So, a bit of a shorter stream today, probably. But yeah, I wanted to get back into doing art streams. It's been a while, so yeah. We're starting with just the rough sketch for a commission. What I have here is something I'll do sometimes for a commission when there's a description of a character. They had a bunch of different scars and different markings and such for this version, different characteristics that I didn't want to have to, just remember at the top of my head. So I'll just it's a bit loud, I think. I'll just very quickly make a little diagram for myself. I actually just remembered another reference I should have up, so I'm going to look that up very quickly. Oop. As I just add an outfit to this. Alright, I think this is about what they wanted, so yeah. Again, this will be just a rough sketch, which is still up for approval. So now I'm just going to figure out what kind of pose I want. This is a point of the process that I have shown a lot less on stream, because it doesn't take that long. But I figure I should show a little bit sometimes. After it, I won't be just waiting for approval. I'll move on to another piece where I have already done the sketch and can move on to the final art. Right now I'm thinking of the pose. I want to do something slightly from above. I feel like I draw a lot from... Hello, what's up? What's up, Logging? I feel like I draw a lot from the front, so I wanted to do something from a different angle. This is for a story that they're writing. I haven't gotten to read the materials they sent me yet, but I intend to before I do like the final version. I kind of like this general pose that I'm going for, but it feels not dynamic enough the way it's coming out. So I'm kind of glaring upwards, the idea. So yeah, I still don't know that much about the premise of like this universe and stuff. But they've given me like a physical description of the characters thus far. So yeah, I like the general idea, but I feel like it doesn't have the energy I want yet. First let me redimension some stuff. Maybe I'll do this. Take all of this, make her a little bit more hunched over, but keep the arm hanging straight down. Let's take the arm. Maybe even spin it around a little bit. Let me play with it. Yeah, I think I like this a bit better. I think also the head. Just realize how tiny this is on the actual stream. But I think I got the basic thing up, so we can enlarge it and work on a little bit more detail. Hi, thanks for the follow. Reichten? I hope I pronounced that correctly. For the very rough sketch, or just like draw the muscles super like as independent shapes, just so we have our general layout of where everything is. Then the next step, we'll smooth it out. The head turns out kind of tiny actually, let me enlarge that. All right. All right. The concept seems to be that like using the suit kinda hurts her body in different ways, like she has scars related to using the arm cannon. I don't know if it's a specific event or just using it in general. So I'm going for this very anime kind of tired position of someone who's been fighting and has like battle damage, to kind of communicate the character in general. Look like you draw with your controller low. Hi, what's up? Sup, dude, sup. Oh, what's up, Storm? Did you get to take a look at the hack yet? Subdued, not yet, but I will though. Alright. I'm already working on version 2, but that should be a while, and I'll have to like test it myself on stream before I make it available to anyone else, just for the basic balancing stuff. But yeah, so the last stuff that I had been playing on stream was the Fire Red hack with Metroid characters. At first just a Metroid starter, but now I'm working on Ridley and the X-Parasite as well. It's not something I can dedicate a lot of time to, because of course it's a not-for-profit thing that I just get to do in my spare time, and I have plenty of work to get through. But it's fun. I enjoy pixel art. It's something that I haven't been able to monetize yet. I've done some pixel art commissions, but it's a smaller market, I feel. Unless you're actually working for games. But either way, it's more of a hobby than my specialization, so I'm not sure if I could do that. I was surprised about some attacks learned by Matra in the first place, but it still makes sense. Very good, thanks. Yeah, if you watched this stream when I was testing it, especially early on, the Matra had a different moveset. I wanted to make it more very restrictive in the beginning. You didn't have any straight up attacks other than Leech Life. But it made the beginning very disproportionately difficult because you couldn't really fight the Weedles at all. You kinda had to grind just to fight the first bug catcher, which for a challenge run can be kind of interesting, but I'm trying to make it more, broad appeal. I want Rapixor for the next update hack. I'm joking. Actually, don't know off the top of my head what Rapixor is. Yeah, I don't know what that is. I'm just gonna let the outfit be understandable in the rough sketch, just so the commissioner can say whether or not this is fine. They gave me kind of vague directions to design the outfit myself. Let's see if this is what they meant. There wasn't a specific reference, draw this outfit, It would be hard to fit all the scars in this rough sketch, just because it will be a bit busy if I put all of them, but they've already seen my diagram, so they know I know where all the scars are. The small spiky insect in Prime. Oh, is that what they're called? The Grimer equivalent? I thought those were zoomers. Maybe I'm thinking about something else. So, okay, I'm going to tone down now the muscles a little bit so they know that they're not going to be like this, insanely over-defined in the final version. I just like to draw muscles really clearly to know where everything goes at first. So yeah, you notice that this was a lot quicker than most of that I do on stream, just because this is a very rough sketch. It's really all about finding the pose, making sure it has like the right energy. I don't want to spend too much time on it, because if it's not what the person had in mind, it's basically just work that's thrown away. So it's more of a pitch than anything. Like, is this what you wanted? And then they can give me feedback. So I'm just going to he looks like the very first enemy encounter in the first Manchester mission. Yeah, those are yeah, I thought they were zoomers in Prime, but okay. Yeah, I'm just going to pop on Twitter real quick to send this rough sketch to the person commissioning. There you go. And now I'm going to open something else that I'm working on. This is actually for a game. I don't know if I can like say the name and stuff yet, but there was this game that was having, it's basically a digital card game. So there were 100 cards to be drawn by 100 artists, so I made it into the selection process. And now, yeah, I'm drawing one card for it, which is pretty good, because just, working for contract stuff, like for a company, it usually pays better than you can reasonably charge for commissions. Just fixing up some geometry before I move on to final art. So yeah, this is about twice my rate for something of this kind. So that's always nice. I've never, set up stuff to like specifically look for contract work. I've always just found it like on the internet. But now I have an art station, so I could start using that as a proper portfolio. So I want to make sure that I like everything before we start. I'll put my references up here. Okay. Oh, I just got what you said way back then about the controller. Like, I was like, what's that? So I just kind of ignored it because there were other comments. But yeah, thanks. So yeah, let me see if I got this hair right. Not finalized, I just want to make sure the top and the bottom fit correctly. Also, I don't know, these feet don't seem very balanced. To make them less curved so it looks more like it can stand very firmly. Alright. Otherwise, do I want to change anything else? It's kind of a weird position that I went for, but that's kind of the idea. Basically, the context for this card is they have this game. They're like space colonists, so they're living in a ship at this point, and they have this game where there's this hydraulic robot that's meant to like lift heavy things, so it's like expanding like this, and they have this context of who can like hold on to it for longest as it tries to lift up. So that's what's supposed to be happening here. So alright. Okay. Oh, I didn't undo it fully. Alright. Yeah, I think this is basically a model and everything. Then these characters in the background will be very simplified because again this is a card that's going to show up on your screen. It's not going to be very big, so anything that's small I want to be drawn with very few lines, very simplified. It looks really cool. It's nice that you're getting contract work. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's always nice. I should try looking for more of that. I'm sure there are ways to like find openings on Twitter or something. Maybe there's some kind of hashtag that I should be following. Should look into that. Actually, let me swoop. This is not quite in model the way the hair is working. Doesn't go up that much. So yeah, on my free time I've still been working a lot on the working. It's barely work. I really like for fun basically. Instead of playing a game, I'm making the Pokemetroid hack. It really doesn't take that much time. Hi, what's up, Orlek? It really doesn't take that much time to do what I've done in Pokemetroid. It's been just my free time here and there. Like if this was what I was working on, the way I work on art, I could probably have done everything that I did in one day. Just sat down and done it. But I'm always, you know, just sneaking in a few minutes here and there. Because the tools are just so good. Everything is very agile. Like when it comes to stuff like creating a moveset and applying it to a Pokemon, it literally just takes as long as searching up their names, like the names of the moves, and placing them down. Like writing it down takes as long as implementing it. It's very, very quick and easy to do. Very good tools. How are you doing? I'm doing pretty good. Finally almost caught up with just my work. there have been some life stuff that combined with just, I guess, demand going up a little bit made work just pile up. So I stopped commissions and decided, okay, I'm just going to finish everything I have, because I also had this to get done. Although I have to the end of the month to do this one, it's not like I'm like a crazy rush or anything. But I want to make like super sure and not leave it to like the last moment. So I'm almost done. One of the commissions, actually, the person commissioning delayed it a little bit. And that's already sketched out, and it's an RPG commission, which I can usually just do it in one sitting from that point. Then there's this and that Metroid one that I just sketched, which is really just a color sketch at the end of the day, so it's not as time consuming as full art. By the end of the week I'll probably be like opening commissions again, unless my other job kind of gets busier. Alright, I think this is good. I think I can move on to the line art now. So we are getting rid of these. I'm going to do it all in black, but then I'm going to make the whole thing lighter. Do you have specific tools for making pixel art? Yes, I have one very specific tool for making pixel art, which is the Windows XP version of Microsoft Paint, which I just downloaded and have on my computer. It is pretty much all I need to make pixel art. Like, I wouldn't know what to add to it to make it like significantly better. I mean, I get like altering colors sometimes when I want to like edit colors in like a large scale, just take every instance of a certain color in a large thing and change it, or like change everything that is a hue of blue into a hue of red, you know, stuff like that. I'll just quickly paste it onto Photoshop to do. But I do most of it, like almost everything, just on Paint. It's very good. Unlike new MS Paint, where really most of what they did, I think it was Vista, the first one that screwed up Paint. They made everything that took like one click to do take 3 clicks basically. They like reorganized everything in menus within menus, and it's terrible. And they also added like brushes that work like a Photoshop brush, so it like peters out towards the edges, which is completely useless for Paint. There's really no task for which the modern Paint is applicable. There was very little that the old Paint was good for. You basically just used it, if you don't happen to do pixel art, you basically just used it to very quickly open an image and like cut a square piece out of it, or like crop it very quickly. It had almost no function, but new Paint has literally no function. Do you sketch first in Photoshop? Not at that scale of like the Pokemon sprites, no. I do basically a pixel art kind of sketch, which is you just draw the shapes, like a big shape, and then you're gonna polish around it. I don't find in that scale, unless you're doing like a Marvel vs. Capcom type sprite, I don't see the need to like use a pen and sketch it properly. I just do everything with mouse. So yeah, basically all the sprite work that you've seen for the Pokemetroid hack was mouse and keyboard on MS Paint. This is a good line. Thickness. I'm kind of not liking this line. I'm wondering if the lines should be thicker. I think not. I think I'll let the inside lines be this width and then the outside lines will be thicker. I really don't enjoy this track. I never really got the lo-fi thing, where you have these sounds that kind of vanish out of the hearable range. Those are kind of sounds. I find it kind of annoying and frustrating. Not really my thing. Best description ever, yeah. I have like zero musical or like sound design etc. knowledge, so I don't know the terms for anything. Oh, no, okay. It really is kind of small. Like I'm working. Yeah, this is 300% zoom. I mean, shows how little it is because the size of the image is by their specifications, and 1000 by 1000 pixels is very little. But yeah, I never got the lo-fi thing. Doesn't appeal to me. I don't find it relaxing, because I find it kind of frustrating. So I kind of focus too much on it. Doesn't fade as much in the background. What's the width of the brush feels very inconsistent at this scale. Well, like you guys probably can see the pixels even on stream, and this is very tiny. I'll draw the face already so I can tell if I like this. Like the file size for this whole image is the same as for the dolls down there. Like one of the dolls. is also within 1000 by 1000 square, but the level of detail is obviously completely different. But you know, if they're going to upload it into the game as 1000 by 1000, which makes sense considering, you know, just the stuff that they're letting different artists make is already 100 cards. There's probably, you know, a couple hundred maybe in the game, I don't know. I don't think they are all, because they have their own artist that does really good art for the game. Like they have a whole folder of reference material, which is all done by the same artist. So I assume they did some like of the more important stuff. I'm thinking whether I should just make all the lines larger. I think I'll leave it for now. Bum, 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 bum. So yeah, I don't know, really don't have that much to say. I mean, there's nothing that I've been doing that isn't like known already, because I've really just been doing either art or the Metroid thing. Oh, I did finish watching with my girlfriend the Evangelion Rebuild movies. And I don't know what the consensus is on those yet. I feel like that was after the last stream, was it? I don't know what people think of those, but I really didn't think there's much of a point to them. Like, in the end of the day, it doesn't add much of anything. Like, it gets completely different. Like, the first movie is basically just remaking the series, and then the second one's already really different. By the end of the second one's just like completely new material, basically. Like, nothing is quite the same anymore. So I thought it was going into a really different direction, but it really doesn't, and it doesn't add that much. It really feels like they just wanted to sell toys. Like, every character has like 2 or 3 different outfits per movie, and they keep introducing like a bunch of new robots, a bunch of new, you know. There's like the new girl character, and I never got what the point of her is. Like, her interactions with the other characters don't add anything to either of them. She's kind of the the most notable new thing, but she really doesn't advance like the themes of the story, in my opinion, in any way. She's just kind of there. Evangelion is too much for my peanut brain. It's really not. Like, people used to meme a lot the too deep for you thing. It's really not that complex. Like, the first series, like, it has some really great aspects. The design aspect of the whole thing is pretty brilliant. And one thing, like, the new series is more complicated, only in very pointless ways. It's like the plot stuff is more complicated. There are like so many different objectives that different characters have at different points, with different like alliances and different like, one character think that doing this certain thing will cause this, but they are actually wrong because that thing was a fake and they were being manipulated by that guy, and it will actually cause this other thing. This is really complicated stuff, but in like a Mission Impossible, like just MacGuffin on top of MacGuffin kind of stuff. Just like there's just a bunch of elements to keep track of, but they don't really advance the themes of the story in any way. The original series kept all that kind of world building extremely vague and simple. It's kind of like Furikuri in that way, which I like way better. In that they have this kind of sci-fi story, but it's really just made of a few key like terms that never get properly explained and are there just to allow for a story that's really about the psychological and emotional journey of the main characters. So the kind of stuff doesn't really matter, like what is the spear of Longinus. I don't really know how you say that stuff in English, like how you pronounce it, but the spear or lance or whatever they call it. Like what that is, where they came from, that really doesn't matter. The story is really all about Shinji, which is what the original ending, like the series ending, really leaned towards. Although I do prefer End of Evangelion over just the series ending. But it's really just about his character. And I think that stuff, you don't need to, make a spreadsheet to understand that. You will get that just from watching the series. And, the main gimmick also is not that difficult to get, where they are kind of going through the paces of a generic anime, but having it not work in like the emotional logic of a generic anime, where like kids can be in these horrible battles and be fine with it, and that's a completely healthy thing to be happening, or like the having like this kind of pervy point of view to the story with the fan service stuff, and that just being kind of an aspect of the genre. And in Evangelion it was actually communicating to you like the sexual frustration of the main character. Like the stuff that's actually interesting about it, I don't think is like difficult to get. The viewer will get those things. And the other stuff isn't as important. And then, like the final episode of the original series, they do just kind of spout a bunch of very vague philosophical stuff, which is frankly the worst part of the series in my opinion. It's kind of cringy. It feels like a teenager who's just thinking about like existential things for the first time. It's really not as smart as it thinks it is. And I used to like dunk harder on Evangelion for that kind of stuff, like the wow deep stuff, because it really wasn't as deep as you thought. But I don't know, I've grown more tolerant to that kind of stuff. Also kind of like the Matrix in that a lot of people back in when it was new were really like thought it was just the deepest thing ever, when really when it comes to like philosophical concepts it explores some pretty basic stuff. With the Matrix I really don't feel like it was meant to be a movie that people would be like, wow, this blew my mind, that's so philosophical and deeply. I really feel it was just wallpaper for kind of a basic sci-fi movie. And some dude bros just get kind of overly excited about it because they're not used to movies explicitly dealing with philosophical concepts. So when a movie comes along and just flat out recites uh, terms that are like philosophical, they're like, wow, that's so deep. It isn't necessarily. It's kind of a ham-handed way to explore stuff. Again, I like The Matrix. It just isn't like the smartest movie ever. And I don't think it thinks it is. It's just there's like a overly excited section of the fan base. Do you like The Lord of the Rings? I respect The Lord of the Rings, but it's not my type of thing. Like, I think it's a good execution of a genre that's not my cup of tea. So I don't dislike it, but it's not a thing that I'm especially excited about. It's just not my kind of fantasy. Again, like lore stuff that's like really in depth, like just knowledge about the universe is not something that interests me as much. I like stories that get really deep into like the world when it's the real world. Like if you take The Count of Monte Cristo is a book series that I read at around the same age, and it's around the same size, and I enjoyed that more because like all the world building in there is of like real history, so I felt like I was learning stuff. I'm usually not that engaged by the history of a made-up world. And when it comes to fantasy, I usually find it more interesting when it doesn't feel the need to make the kind of logical sense that the stuff in Lord of the Rings makes, where you can know like exactly what the correct history is and where everything is, and everything works by fairly set in stone rules. Like, I'm always kind of bored by magic systems, for example, that are too knowable. Because at that point, it's kind of not even magic anymore. Like, I feel like fantasy usually allows you to tell kinds of stories that you could not tell in a realistic world because you don't need that level of coherency, and it doesn't need to make the kind of literal sense that a story in the real world needs to make. Sometimes, not that every non-fantasy story needs to be realistic, but you know what I mean. It gives you kind of an infinite set of tools. You can create whatever tool you want to create to tell whatever story you want to create, and then have it make thematic sense, because it doesn't have to make literal sense. So I find that to be kind of the most interesting use of like fantasy and magic for a story, which Lord of the Rings deliberately does not do. It's just not the approach that Tolkien took there. And I think it did what he was aiming to do very well. It's just not my favorite kind of fantasy. What I don't know is what they are thinking making a Lord of the Ring, like spending more money than was ever spent in a TV show, making a Lord of the Rings adaptation. Like, if there's one like large book series that does not need that, is Lord of the Rings. They already had like 9 hours of extremely high budget movie made about them. You're not going to make something that's that well crafted and that well, produced. People already know where it goes, so there isn't the kind of mystery that keeps people engaged that usually makes a long-running TV show popular. I can't imagine how they would make their money back spending a huge amount of money, because no matter how much money you spend, it's not going to look as good minute to minute as 3 extremely high budget movies. Even, if you have 20 years of technology on your side. What's the point of giving a real or logical explanation to magic? Yeah, I don't specifically. Yeah, I feel like it wastes some potential of that. So I feel so ill-advised that they're making Lord of the Rings. Like, I know there's an unknown quantity, and everything in big budget media nowadays needs to be that. Like, you can't gamble on something that isn't already super popular. Like, everything needs to already be a massive franchise. But when you're competing against the Peter Jackson movies, it's just why. I heard something, I might have said this on stream before, because I find it very interesting. but I've heard the explanation that part of the reason why everything is like an adaptation now of an existing IP is not just that there is a real advantage, which there is, to doing things that are already popular, but also so the producers that pitched the idea, and defended it as an investment, have a shield in case it doesn't work out, because they have like receipts to justify why they thought it would work out. They don't have to have that as their value judgment. Like, I thought it would work out and it didn't. That means, I'm not very good at telling what works out. But if I can say, well, I had all these bases to think it will work out because I had numbers. I had this thing being successful before, and it is similar to like Game of Thrones or whatever, which worked out before. So you guys can see where I came from in believing it would work, right? It takes the responsibility off of the producer. They get to just make choices like as a collective looking at numbers, rather than individuals having to put their neck out and say, I think this will work, I think this won't, based on my own judgment. And when their judgment is wrong, they lose their job or whatever. Oh, I never changed the thing. I need to make like an audio cue thing for when I have the wrong text at the bottom of the screen. So yeah, so pretty soon I'm going to give myself some more time. Like, if I wanted to start testing version 2 of Pokemetroid with the new starters in an unfinished way, like I did with the other one, where I was testing it as I developed it, I could do that today. I have the movesets for the starters, I have the sprites for both lineages finished, I just didn't import it into the game yet. But I feel like it's too recent after that, after the last one. So I'm going to do it all the way to the end. I'm going to have like movesets for the 3 forms, like the beta moveset for 3 forms of both. Because the idea is I'll play with Ridley and the rival will have X, which they won't be able to use at all because X is the most difficult one to use. Like, it's the most complicated, difficult to raise starter because basically it doesn't attack directly at all. But I'll be able to see its sprites like functioning and make sure that the rival battles are working with edited Pokemon, all that stuff. So I'll do it when it's all done this time. I won't be developing it as I go. I'll have like a version of it all imported into the game, and I'll play more to make notes and rebalance the movesets as I did for the Metroid. I actually have to change the text too, because I said in the Metroid that it was hard to raise it. Like Professor Oak tells you which one is easiest and hardest to raise. And at this point, I think the Metroid will be the intermediary one. Ridley will be the easiest one to raise, just because it's more like it attacks more directly. And definitely the X-Parasite will be the hardest one to raise, because in its entire moveset it learns no attacks, either physical or special. I think I'll add some attacks to the evolutions, but like the base X doesn't attack. It only transforms, like you have to use your opponent's attacks. Later you got Mimic, so you can copy just one attack if you want. Otherwise it just statuses the enemy. So the idea basically is, you kind of debuff the enemy, and then you turn into them and try to beat them in a one-on-one fight. Basically it's going to be good Ditto. I'll try to make Ditto usable. Because Ditto sucks. It transforms into the opponent, including having all of the opponent's stats except for HP, and all the moves have only 5 PP, so it's usually just a worse version of your opponent, and you spent a turn turning into that, so you tend to lose unless your opponent just has a bad HP stat. Which would usually just be the consequence of the Ditto being over-leveled to begin with. So the X-Parasite, first HP is its highest stat. So if it's the same level, it should still have considerably larger HP than most enemy Pokemon. But also it's going to have a bunch of other stuff that it can do before transforming. Oh, I shouldn't make such small details, because this is tiny. Actually, I had a random silly idea. What if the rival was a Remember Me guy from Other M, and every time he shows up he just says Remember Me? Yeah. I was thinking about rival, but I feel like the rival is... editing the rival is more effort than it's worth. I feel like people would almost always prefer one more Metroid-based Pokemon than an edited rival, and it would take less work. Because the rival has like a different sprite every time you fight him, and then he has a bunch of dialogue that I'd have to find all the dialogue in the game for the rival, and make sure to edit all of it. So especially dialogue, I'd probably not edit. I did think, because it would take way less effort, about making the rival Dark Samus, and basically just making him a color swap of the Samus sprite. So that would be pretty easy to do. just all the overworld sprites. I could just copy and paste and use a different palette. And even the fight sprite, I already have the training sprite, which you almost never see for Samus. So I could do just a minor edit of that and make it like Samus. We just give her black hair and black and blue clothes. Maybe I'll do that for like the final version. Because right now, there's here's the development plan. It's kind of version 0 was what I started playing on stream, where all that existed was the Metroid. Basically in the beta form, where I was still testing the moves. Then version 1 had the Metroid in the finished form, and because I had, which was what I was playing by the end of the playthrough. I had already edited the moveset of the Metroid, so the early game was easier, and it had Samus. Then version 2, which I'm working on now, will have Ridley and Axe in their beta forms, because I'll have to test the moveset yet. And they have what was in the previous version as well. And then version 3 would be Ridley and Axe on their finished forms, as well as the legendaries. Oh, and Mother Brain was done here. So it was version 1, version 2, version 3 would be the idea. So maybe I'll add on top of that version 3 Dark Samus' the rival. Version 3 would be the final, by the way, as far as I'm thinking. People have expressed interest in more stuff, but I figure I'll probably be pretty bored with the project by that point, even taking breaks. And since it is something that I'm making for my own amusement and isn't monetizable in any way, me losing interest pretty much means the project is done, so I won't hype up anything that I'm not sure will ever come to fruition. I gotta keep checking romhacking.com, by the way, because as of my last post, I posted that it was accepted onto romhacking, the version 1.0, but it hadn't yet been in the front page, when they'll every week or so they do a post that shows the stuff that was approved that week. So it hasn't been there yet. So I checked in and it had 60 downloads, which is already kind of more people than I was thinking would play this. And that's probably just people from my Twitter, because I don't know how people even find it other than the weekly dump of stuff. Maybe there's a place where you just see the latest entries, but I think most people who will see there will see it when there's a weekly thing. So I'm wondering how many people will find it in that site. which is cool because I've used the site forever, so I like seeing my theme there. Like I've said, I've done ROM hacks before, but always just for fun as personal projects. I've never polished something to the extent that I wanted to publish it before. I think I'll use the ink pen now for the arms and stuff. I think I need to, you know, like liberate myself to not be too focused on little details, since again this is already twice as much zoom as you could possibly view these images in the final game. It's already 200%, and I doubt they'll show it at 100% at any point. Maybe when you just look at the card straight on. But this isn't, you know, a lot of detail. So yeah, I'll draw the robots lines now. I'll make a layer just for the robot, so I can cut through stuff with the robot's lines, right? Actually no. I can just set a history brush and nothing will be lost. So. Oop. Oh, while I'm drawing, I've been on a bit of a binge of watching stuff about scam, like Kickstarter games. I mentioned just some stuff, like just kind of developers getting, you know, over their heads basically, where they basically take on the, you know, they claim they will develop a game that they can't develop. and then they just have to be developing that. I mentioned that on OLX stream. I don't remember what subject led to that, but we talked about that for a bit. And I've just been watching stuff about that because it's kind of fascinating. It's just basically like the ones I mentioned in OLX stream was like Yonder Simulator. It's kind of really famous, where the dude came up with an idea for a game that would be basically Hitman in an anime high school with RPG elements and like social sim elements on top of it. It's a fairly ambitious game. There's just a lot of moving parts there. It would be very hard to get it balanced. I would already say that you can't, even a big studio shouldn't say let's do this game in this model, because you don't know if those two mechanics will complement each other in a way that's interesting at all. So you should probably start the kind of project with more of a flexible idea of what it's going to be, so we can go in a different direction. And maybe jettison one of the two main elements in favor of something else if it just doesn't jive. But the dude like got a bunch of money to do that. And on top of that, it turns out that he also just is not very good game developer, nor is he very good at, like, very disciplined probably at working based on how the thing has progressed. So he's basically been trapped in limbo, developing a game that he must by now realize he's not capable of finishing. But he already got a bunch of money to be working on this game and continues to earn money through Patreon to be working on this game. So he's probably just going to ride it out as long as possible, which is kind of a weird situation to be on. But there are a bunch of stories like that, and there are a lot of like way worse people. Actually, I don't know a lot about the dude's personal life. I know that people have problems with his character at all. In general, I actually know nothing about his character. I only know about his situation. But there are games that are more clearly scams out there. Ones that started already as scams, others that they probably wanted to make a game in the beginning, but also, you know, he's basically screwed. Yeah, he's in a very bad position. There's no getting out of there. Dude even had a chance to get out, where like an indie developer offered to like finish the game for him, basically. So he would, I think, cede the rights to them and they would finish it. But he started working with them, but then he wanted to keep more creative control than they kind of were willing to give, and they just stopped working together. Like, they say that he wasn't letting their developers work on anything relevant for the game, so that opportunity went away, and he broke contract with them and even had to pay them a bunch of money, I think. So he just ended up even more in the red when he had a chance to get out. But yeah, it sucks. Like, I don't know, like, maybe he's just a horrible person. I know people, there are people who say he's awful. I don't really know anything about him, but just the situation's kind of pitiable, I guess. And there have been other people that I was seeing stuff about a couple of games. One of them kinda looks like the guys actually wanted to make a super ambitious game at some point and were just very dishonest in portraying their own abilities to make a game, but they figured they would manage it and just didn't, which is Chronicles of Illyria. That's really just fascinating if you look it up. There's like Kira TV, the channel that talked a bunch about them. Just the dudes wanted to make like this huge MMO, like the biggest stuff that doesn't work out is always like a huge MMO, which is just like the real world, and there's going to be all these things you can do inside it. There's like 3 guys making it, and they just don't realize the technical limitations that they are under, and then of course the game never comes out. So those guys just look like they were really dishonest about what the game was. They like showed trailers that just weren't an online game, you know. They just put a bunch of Unity assets in like a single player scenario and just kind of played out a little limited scene, and they were like, oh, this is our prototype for an MMO. You know, it's very, very, very different what you can do like in your PC in single player in one instance in one scene, and what that thing can be as an element in an MMO game. And then they made a bunch of crazy promises about how complex the world would be, and it would have like politics and everything would work kind of in real world logic, and be hyper detailed, and like that takes manpower to do. You can't just have an idea and 3 people and get it done. You need a ridiculous amount of money, and like they got their Kickstarter money, but it wasn't enough to do that. It wasn't enough even for like very good experienced developers to do that, let alone them. And now they're also in this kind of weird situation where they're just developing the game forever. They kind of transitioned into, oh, we're going to start making the game as like a bunch of different games that we're going to just fuse together in the end to be one. So right now they're working in a game that's like a SimCity kind of thing, where you can just it's just building houses from a top-down perspective. Not even SimCity, like a Age of Empires thing, I guess, where you have like a little villager units and you have them collect resources and build stuff. But they all have a little status screen basically, and it looks terrible. So they basically made like Age of Empires 2 or something, like a very basic version of it that doesn't even work yet. And I think it's already past the time where they were supposed to have like released the original MMO, and they're still doing that. Which is supposed to be just kind of a demo baseline to later develop one of the aspects of the game on top of, which would be like the politics part. So basically they're stuck. They took a bunch of Kickstarter money, they spent that money, they don't have it anymore. So they just have to be developing a game, just forever. Because the moment they aren't anymore, they can be sued. And people even started the process of suing them. They actually said they were shuttering the studio, and then people started suing them, and they said, oh, actually we misspoke. We weren't shuttering the studio, we were just kind of firing everyone except the main 2 guys because of COVID, but we're still making the game, technically. So they're still technically making the game. And they never had like, there was no set release date that they ever, bound themselves to. So they can just be developing the game forever. As long as they haven't admitted that the game will never come out, which is obvious to any person, just any living person can tell this game's never going to be what they promised. As long as they can say they're technically working towards that, even if it's extremely slowly and ineptly, you can sue them. So they're just stuck. They're going to just have to be making this game indefinitely, because as soon as they stop, they get sued. So I've just been watching stuff about that. There's also Dream World, which is the funniest one. That one is just a scam from the start. The dudes, it's two dudes making a game. Neither of them is game developers, and they said that they would make just the most complex game in the world and have like millions of people in the same server. And they can't even get like. It would basically be like a realistic Minecraft with millions of people in the same server. Like, they just said they were going to do that. And people believed them for some reason. Considering it was two dudes, one of the dudes wasn't even a game developer, the other dude, neither of them was a game developer, but one of them wasn't even really a programmer, and the other one said that he was like an ex-Google and Facebook like star engineer or something, he said, and he was an intern in both of those companies for like a summer each. And he can't even begin to program a game. So I would recommend that just looking up those things on YouTube. There's like tons of people have made videos about it. And I was just leaving that as my background noise because it's just funny. I feel like this thumb, let me look in my hand. No, I thought it was short, but I guess not. Alright. But I never got giving money to a game that doesn't exist yet. Even buying games in alpha, I don't get it. Like, why would I pay to play a game that's not finished? There are so many games that are finished and they are basically the same price. So like, people are paid for that. Like, big studios pay people to play their unfinished game. People don't pay them, they pay people. But I guess it's a way of supporting the game, which I get if it's like something that you really believe in and that no one else would do. But I wouldn't even know an occasion where I would get why people like bought a game and played it before it was finished. As someone who wants to be a game dev but doesn't always finish projects, hearing that just stresses me out. Yeah, well, as long as you don't take millions of dollars from people to like make a project that you don't have the ability to finish at all, like not even make it good, make it at all what you said it would be, because nobody's forcing them to make a good game. They could release a game that absolutely sucked and they would be freed from all of their responsibility, as long as it was all the objective things that they claimed about the game, right? As long as it had all the features they said it would have, even if they were awful and the game was completely unfun, they would be freed. But they overpromise to such an absurd degree that they just can't finish it at all. Like, the only one of these examples that I said that was even like feasible is Yandere Simulator. That is a fairly ambitious game, but single developers have made more elaborate games in less time. At that point, is really that the guy who is doing it doesn't appear to have the admittedly very high level of skill and dedication to make like a 3D fairly complex game all by yourself. Which isn't all by yourself, it takes a bunch of volunteer work from people and then like complains that the volunteers are not working fast enough. And he did buy a bunch of assets and steal other assets from the store, so you can't really say that he made the game by himself. But the coding is his, I guess. But he doesn't have the ability to do that in like less than a decade or something. Every game project had a part of in college involve overstating what we can do in the time we have, maybe. Hopefully not to the extent that you said, you know, this is going to be the biggest MMO ever, with millions of people in the same server building realistic structures. Oh, and then there's like, speaking of overpromising, then there's like the scammiest? The scammiest one of all. Which this one's 100% like premeditated. Just scam to take people's money from full-on charlatans. There's no way they believe this. That it was called Earth 2. Where they basically just... They didn't even start making the game yet. Like, the only footage for the supposed game they have is like a jeep walking in a field. But they have already been for months now selling tiles in the game world, which, like, they say the game world would be like a copy of Earth in a 1-to-1 scale. Which is like super detailed and you can navigate just freely without loading times. And they literally said that they're basically making the Matrix, and that will be like a VR, fully immersive game, super detailed, the size of Earth, where you can build whatever you want, all that stuff. But what it is to this point, and the only thing it will ever be, is like a map of the Earth where you get to buy land for real money, in the promise that that land's going to be yours when the game comes out. And you'll be able to like build whatever you want in it and make money off of it as if it was real land. Which, like, you don't need a major in economics to know why digital land is not equivalent to real land, even if the game did become like this place that everybody wanted to be in. But anyway, the game is never going to exist, obviously. It's again just a handful of people who are not experienced, like, they're not a game developer team. There's like one game dev in there that made one game. And just the technology doesn't exist. They need to be inventing completely new technology, and they're just not that level. Like it would be impressive if Microsoft said they were making this game, and it's like nobody. So it's pretty much just a scheme, a scam. You know, they're already making money because they're selling the land now. They can just not make the game. Nah, just a number of features didn't make it in. Yeah, they didn't lie. You can get scammed just like in real life. Yeah, that aspect is very immersive. So yeah, they're just not making the game. Any game that's like, okay, we don't have the game yet, but we promise we will. We will make the most technologically advanced game of all time, just completely like blow every other project out of the water in terms of like complexity and technical difficulty of making it. Just by far the most ambitious game project of all time. We'll have to like revolutionize technology in 2 or 3 different ways for it to even be possible in currently existing hardware. And we've never, done anything before that, but we're going to do it totally. Just until we're done doing it, which we will definitely do. How about you guys give us money ahead of time for stuff? And people are like, yep, okay, I'll give you money ahead of time. Which is kind of insane. Like there's so many, like they treat it as an investment because land now is cheaper than it will be when the game is finished, theoretically. But even if you believe the game would ever be finished, why would you believe that this will be the one game that everybody's going to be playing to the point of land being valuable? Like people can just make other games and make land free in those and just completely win the market over because people are going to want to be in the game where land is free. Also, land never devalues in real life because nobody's making new land. When it comes to an MMO, people can, like, even Earth 2 themselves could make Earth 3 whenever they felt like it. Just Ctrl-C, Ctrl-V, now there's another Earth, and you guys can buy from us all over again. We'll make the money all over again, and the guys who bought it the first time just got everything devalued by half. Even if there were ever enough players in a VR game to populate a game world the size of Earth to the point where there's a lack of space, which of course there won't be. There would never be. It's like literally impossible for there to not be a lot of land left. Because like most of the real Earth doesn't belong to anybody, and what does is used for agriculture, which is unnecessary in Earth 2. Earth 2 would be fully dedicated just as a playground. How are just the people who own VR gear in Earth 1 be enough to like saturate the space of Earth 2 just playing around? The land would never be valuable because there's way more of it already than people could ever want. And there's no reason like people are buying like the Statue of Liberty or like I don't know, the Taj Mahal or whatever. Why would you want that? Those things won't even be in the game. The game's just land again. They won't like rebuild every building on the world. Nobody could do that. So why would you care that you're on top of the Taj Mahal or not? What will matter is what players put there. So you could buy the shittiest land in the world and just make it valuable. Just like equally just as good as any other land. Like again, like the one system they have is like each block of land gives different resources over time, and you need resources to build your stuff. But someone could just make a competitive game where you have infinite resources and can build whatever you want, and it would be immediately a much more interesting and vibrant world than a 2, and nobody would give a crap about that 2. Like, it makes no sense. And they've made a bunch of money already. Like, a bunch of people have invested tons of money into it. So it's really fascinating to see how people... The fear of missing out thing, ever since Bitcoin happened and like got valuable and like a handful of people got rich off of Bitcoin, there have been a million scams that they just say, oh, we're totally the next Bitcoin. If you invest earlier, you're going to be rich for doing nothing. And everybody wants that, so you just need to have enough buzzwords in your pitch to convince people that your idea is really futuristic and cool, and people will give you money for nothing. Like, when was the last time you guys heard about NFTs? I feel like there was a 2-week period where nobody would shut up about NFTs, like pro and against it. And I just never heard people talking about it again. Like, the 3rd week I was hearing about stuff that was sold as really expensive. Now nobody wanted it anymore. Like, it was already devaluing. And then I just never heard about it again. It just came and went. And people spend like hundreds of thousands of dollars in NFTs. If you reach enough people, I guess you can find someone super rich who wants to be an early adopter and investor. A lot of stupid stuff like that feels like it's just kind of fishing for rich people. Yeah, one good thing about like NFT scams or like this pump and dump crypto coin scams that like influencers like take part in all the time. One good thing is they seem to mostly target rich people, because like investment and like people who live paycheck to paycheck just don't have the money to put in that, even if they wanted to. So they seem to mostly exploit rich people, which I'm generally fine with. They're not the worst thing in the world. Put that money back in the economy or something. But you have to imagine that some of the people, like the rich people, probably lost more money. Like, even if most of the money comes from rich people, the non-rich people who made an effort to put their money in that are going to be hurt way worse. Because there's always someone who gets like super excited and thinks, oh, this is my way, you know, this is how I'm going to change my life around. I'm going to take the money that I've been saving for years and I'm going to put it into this, you know. And I feel like that one guy, that one person, is just enough for the whole thing to be pretty awful. Because the rich guys are probably going to be fine. Even if they put in most of the money, they didn't put in money that they couldn't afford. I got an ad for an NFT marketplace last week, but otherwise, yeah, nobody talks about it now. Yeah, I just don't hear that much about it anymore, especially because, you know, I'm on art Twitter. I mostly follow artists, and most of them were talking about it just in terms of, hey, this is pretty terrible. You're, you know, causing a bunch of like a really bad environmental impact to create something that really only works to give money to speculators. Like, it doesn't create any wealth, it just lets people play a game where only rich people can win, where you get more money for doing nothing, just owning things. So it's pretty awful all around. Most people seem to be against it. But I just don't hear about it anymore at all. The last thing I heard were people saying that, you know, the bubble was kind of bursting. So yeah. I really feel like, you know, if it had been successful and gone on, there should be just international legislation prohibiting it. Because, like, the environment does not belong to whoever feels like using it. Like, it belongs to humanity in general. And, like, we are going to create some level of environmental degradation by producing things that we need to subsist. We can't be letting people do stuff that's completely unnecessary for humanity as a whole and just enriches a few people. You know, letting that be done in a way that causes any significant environmental damage. It's not like the financial market. Like, the financial market as a whole creates value because it makes it so investment can get to people who have the capacity to create value if they had access to credit. You know, to the funds that they need to get a certain economical activity underway. So, you know, as much as that concentrates money on rich people, it also does create some wealth in that it makes the production system in general more efficient. But NFTs, I really can't see a single way in which they benefit the economy or create wealth for anybody that isn't like a speculator. So we should just not allow people to destroy the environment to do that. There is no greater good there. You can just be allowing people to, oh, it's your computer, you get to use a ton of electricity to mine whatever authentication thing for your NFT. But no, you don't get to do that. That's illegal now. It's like throwing fucking garbage in the ocean. You don't get to just do that because you feel like it. But yeah, with the internet, the thing that Blagan said, like, you get to just fish for a few people. Even if 99% of people look at your thing and they're like, okay, this is a scam. If 1% doesn't, that's already just a ridiculous amount of people. like with mobile games or whatever, you're always looking for whales, like the people who you can squeeze just a lot and a lot of money out of. Definitely seems to be the case with most of this, scam investment stuff. This promises something will be valuable later when they have no way of realizing it. Looks like it's usually like most of the money is coming from a few people who decide to put a bunch of money into it. And you see by some of the values, there was like a dude in Korea or something who bought like a huge, really valuable piece of land from another player. So that one player is probably going to be able to get out of this thing with a profit, but let the Korean do the amount of money he has to be like an investor, like a really rich dude, or an investment firm or something, that decided, okay, we're going to bet on this, maybe it's going to, be nothing, but if it's something, then we have a lot of money. Like high risk, high reward, but still not a very thought out high risk, high reward. So if you look at it for like 5 minutes, a lot of very big problems with the idea show up. Many laws about environmental stuff should exist, but doesn't, because it's the people with the money who make the laws. Yeah, pretty much. We also still not very good at making laws that work at a scale larger than individual countries. Like there is international regulations, but they're usually kind of a secondary thing. Like our law systems work mostly on a nation by nation basis, and that's kind of a problem for environmental stuff, because environmental legislation will almost always mean some loss of economic efficiency, and if you let people do whatever they want, usually it boosts your economy. So for that not to be bad on the short term for your country, basically everybody needs to be in there together. That's very tough to do in a more strict way. So you have the Paris Accords, which is pretty basic, it's not by any means radical stuff, or like that ambitious. It will still only minimize environmental catastrophes that are coming up on the next 20 years, but something is a start, but it's very modest, and even then it's kind of a pain to get the US, for example, into it. They kinda got out, then kinda got back in, because countries are competing with each other too. Yeah, subject got a little bit more serious than usual for the stream, but yeah. Okay. I'm not sure, but I think you missed the thing, a tooth-shaped part of the robot. Oh, I think that was probably this or this. Yeah, I draw the lines like as a whole thing first, because you know the next part on either side of the tooth has to line up. So I did that first. So what I did here was just get one section that's like the tooth section and then pull it up to be the tooth. So it also, you know, the curve matches what the curve was beneath here. I'm assuming that, or maybe this is what you're talking about, which again, I'll try to make it match when I go down. But yeah, geometrical stuff, you can have to plan out stuff like that to make sure that the shape's coherent. But I could be remembering wrong, huh? Well, if you're talking about something else, then I actually don't know. But I'm, you know, still adding these things because I just did it basically without them first to get the curves right. Now, I need to just lift this whole thing. The top having another section to the left. Yeah, to click with this, I think I'll have to do a tooth thing like here. But then again, you know, I'll pull it down even with this part. So let me just, you know, finish up there, and then I'll make sure the teeth all you know, make sense, as in they would all click together. Oh yeah, actually this should go a bit to the right as well. Like here, actually. So yeah, you need to make it make sense. So I have to describe what I mean. Yeah, but anyway, as I said, I'll try to make sure that the teeth things all match up correctly. I'll actually extend this a little bit more. Then here first I'll do the back. And there you go. Now let's pull down like the tooth thing, like this. And this goes to. Let me see. I don't know if this is the part that you were talking about. Yeah, I didn't realize you hadn't done it yet. Yeah, at the time you said I had only done like this one. Because, yeah, I want to draw the full circle first, and then pull the teeth down basically. And I'm thinking like here there should like start back here another one. It's kinda complicated, but again like it will be displayed like this size in the game probably. So I don't need to get too like perfectionist about it. I weirdly didn't scare people off talking about NFTs in the environment or like so gaming scams, and then the environment didn't even talk that much about NFTs. It was just kind of the bridge between those two subjects. But yeah, I just find that kind of stuff kind of fascinating. Like the Fire Festival thing is probably like the most well-known thing that's kind of equivalent, where like people with this really idealized idea of what an entrepreneur is, and who think you just have to go out there and do your idea, and you know you're such a special person for having this idea that you're passionate about, and then they, you know, jump head first into something that they have no actual ability to make real, and you know lie to people about their own abilities because they seem to think that that's kind of just part of the game. You know, just you have to be confident, you have to, you know, sell stuff, you have to be assertive. They just lie and overpromise to get their money because they think they're this very, it's a very protagonist kind of energy, where they feel like if they want it hard enough, they'll just be able to do the thing that makes you a winner. And the thing they think makes them a winner is like having a big enterprise financial thing that makes you money. And if you have to lie to people to put yourself in the position where you can succeed at that, then that's just part of the game. Yikes, don't know if you guys heard that. It's pretty loud thunder. That's super sketchy. Yeah, these people are pretty sketchy in general. But I think they kind of think that's just how it works, you know, that's basically that it's fair game. And that they're going to, like, I think most of them think they are going to do an amazing thing. The rain sounds in the background real this time? Yeah. I thought you guys probably couldn't hear the rain itself. But yeah, it's been raining pretty hard here for the last couple of days. I wish there could be where I live. I love thunder and rain. I also really like the sound of thunder and rain. Unfortunately, for a while now, it has not rained exclusively outside my house, which is the way I prefer my rain. Um, I've managed to take care of most of the, what do you call them, leaks? When water goes through the roof. But we still got some. So that kind of sucks. I got a bunch of towels in the other room just absorbing a bunch of rain because it's just really obnoxious. And like the place where I am right now, thankfully it's not raining here right now. I had to plug up a bunch of stuff. But there's like a wall, and then the ceiling is lower in one side and on the other. Like, I don't know if this actually helps, like, understand, but you know, it's like this. Like this wall is taller than this wall. Just like this. So it's raining, going like this outside. But there are also stuff that holds up the ceiling that goes in this direction, like the wood things. And when the water goes through here, it runs through them and like falls on different points depending on how hard it's raining. Like the amount of water, as more water starts building up, starts being able to go further along before it breaks off from the stream and drops down. So you can't even put down a bucket because then it will start raining harder and start hitting somewhere else. So that's kind of terrible. In the other rooms, the same. I use towels on like a line instead of a bucket. Yeah, it kind of sucks. Thankfully, my computer is up against a wall where that just doesn't happen. So it is not on risk of becoming wet. I've lost a lot of papers though. It has rained on top. Some electric devices, but again, thankfully, none of them stopped working. Ironically, the place where I keep my hair dryer is a place where it often rains, but then I just, have it unplugged to dry it out, and then, carefully plug it and turn it on for a bit, and it's a hair dryer. It kind of dries its own insides by just heating up heating up a lot and having air run through it. So it's kind of the perfect electric device to not be ruined by water, as long as you get to it fast enough. And there's some risk of electrocution. You should be careful in drying it, but if you do it carefully, you can have it dry itself. So that's good. So yeah, unfortunately, as much as I like the rain as like a relaxing background thing, now whenever it starts like raining a considerable amount, I always have this worry on the back of my head of where is it going to rain inside my house. It's because it's a really old house, so the roof isn't that great. It's just kind of full of holes. I really just want to, flex tape the entire roof. Oh man, please be super careful with that. Yeah, I am. Yeah, kinda. It was kind of funny the day that me and my girlfriend were playing River City Girls together. And the day that we beat the game, it had kind of started raining while we were playing, and it got harder and harder. And like we finished the game, like I had started hearing like dropping, and I was like, okay, there's probably like again I don't know the word leak or whatever. So we kind of beat the boss, and we just looked around, and it was just raining everywhere. There are like 5 different uh, places that had just water coming down, and it was starting to go harder and harder and harder, like in a matter of seconds, right? Like it went from what I thought, but what I was hearing was only one, to just a ton of them everywhere. We just looked around, and it was like more and more and more, just springing up everywhere as the rain got harder. Like the credits were scrolling, and there was like some dumb music because the game has like a silly pop punk sort of soundtrack in like key moments. So it was probably playing a really stupid song, and meanwhile we were scrambling to like save all stuff that's not water resistance and getting buckets and towels, trying to contain the damage. Yeah, I actually think I'm going to call it a day for streaming. So I thank you guys very much for dropping by. I think I'm not going to read anyone because it's really only 3 people here at this point. Let me see. If I have to look for people, I'm not gonna read anybody. Let me see. I just heard myself there. Well, I mean, might as well. Slash raid this guy. We've raided before, but it's been a long time, and he's probably just starting a stream because there's only 1 viewer, so might as well kickstart it. So yeah, thank you guys as always for dropping by. See you next time. Bye.